Oh, it's a nice night. Woo! Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the artiest of them all? Are you doing video or still?
Video, yeah.
Oh my goodness, this is exciting. Hello. Kathy, you want to say something? So shy.
The Muse.
He's not amused. Okay, so it's Gary Raymond, and this piece is called Mirror Mirror, and there's multiple themes. The sub-theme is the idea of Snow White's stepmother's mirror. That you talk to the mirror and the mirror talks back to you. My overriding theme on all my interactive pieces is the idea that when you look at an object, you tend to classify it. And if it's a utilitarian object, you tend to dismiss it as something you know. For instance, a mirror. By adding the sound element, I'm changing your perception of reality. So in other words, in looking at an object, you're actually reprogramming your reality. This is not, just a utilitarian object. It's something different than that. And I think that's it.
Can you say anything about the technology involved?
It's all magic. Remember, Isaac Asimov said that technology that's sufficiently advanced appears as magic. So all my pieces, I don't like the technology to be visible. It's kind of like if you go back to the age before reason, when you have all the mythology, where all the fairy tales came from, the Grimms and all those fairy tales, where things just, inanimate objects seem to have their own spirits, kind of like Native American culture too, where what we consider inanimate objects actually had their own spirit. And we live in such a technological society, we tend to dismiss that, but I kind of like the idea that maybe that is true, or there's something to it. So that's why I like to have my technology invisible. Not all sound art is that way. There's certainly a very, very legitimate branch of sound art that uses sound components as the visual component. Speakers, turntables, all that. But the stuff I'm doing, I like to be kind of a level below that in terms of subtlety, or above it, whichever way you want to think about it. And I don't like the technology to be visible because I don't want the technology to be distracting from the process of the viewer becoming self-aware of experiencing something that's different than what they expected. I think that's the essence of it, is I'm trying to make the viewer, through these sound elements that are not normally associated with an object, I'm trying to make the viewer understand that they're seeing something that is not what they thought it was.
Can you say anything about your inspirations for the piece, or are there works that have transformed you? And have there been works that have had a transformative effect on you that have significantly affected or inspired you?
It's interesting. Off the top of my head, not a specific piece, there are things that I experience, and that kind of percolates, in the stew, in the spaghetti sauce for a while, Usually, what happens is, just all of a sudden something pops into my head. That's been the case. It's not that they're not, there isn't a connection to something else. There probably's got to be, because almost all original creativity has some connection to something else. But it's usually not the case that I see something and I go, gee, that would be great, but I can do it this way. Not usually. This piece, I think it just popped out of somewhere. It's a wonderful thing. I do, have a certain, being a sound engineer, that was my background. If I had done only art and not had gone into also sound, I wouldn't have had the technical capability to kind of have these techniques at my disposal. And what happens is, all of a sudden, an art idea will come up, and sometimes the technique will inspire it. I have a series, the last about 5 years I've done these interactive pieces, and these came about because of this ability to kind of mimic the pacing and patterning of when you have a conversation with yourself. There's something really interesting. These have a certain delay in them. And so if I just amplified the voice, you'd walk by and go, oh, my voice is being amplified, there must be a sound system. If I had a very long delay, you'd go, oh, it's an echo. What I found is there's a certain kind of rhythm that's physiological, that when you're having a conversation with someone else, a certain kind of pacing. And if you, for instance, wait too long, it's kind of awkward. You know, to respond, say someone says something. If you wait too long, it's awkward. If you respond too quickly and cut them off, it kind of kills the conversation. So I actually did a lot of experimentation, and I found there was a certain kind of time, a certain amount of time, that you kind of had this give and take rhythm. So I incorporated that in the mirror and these other interactive pieces I've done. The first one I did was called Outside the Box, which was a crate, and when you would talk, it would repeat what you say. It was the first one I did. And even though you're aware that it's your voice, subliminally there's this timing that works really well, and you kind of all of a sudden get into this kind of like you're having a conversation with someone else. Now actually, to be honest, that was inspired. I saw a great interview on Charlie Rose with Richard Serra, who did the torqued ellipses, and he was talking about the torqued ellipses were not representational art, even though they were abstract. They were not abstract, and I thought, oh, they were abstract, not representation. Wow. You know, there's got to be a connection there. I'm not sure what it is. It'll pop up later. It might even be an art piece. Anyway, Richard Serra was talking about the fact that he was not doing abstract representational art, which is what everyone expected. So Rose asked him, he said, what do you mean it's not representational? He says, because it's not, even though it would be perceived, people might think it's abstract, it's not representing anything. He said, the art experience is you being in the space with this physical thing and how you're experiencing that. And I thought that was really fascinating. So I thought, okay, what would non-representational sound art be? And that's when I came up with Outside the Box. That was about 2005, I believe. And the idea was it's just a crate, and it was out here at Soundwalk that year, and it was just sitting there, and it had a shipping label that said Outside the Box. But basically, if people were walking by on the sidewalk, if they were happened to talking to each other, they might hear their voice being repeated, and it was great. I love to watch, you know, and so somebody'd stop and they'd hear their voice, they'd look around, once they'd see the crate, like somebody had the shipping crate they'd forgotten or were in the middle of doing something, they'd go back, talk to it, repeat their voice, knock on it, the thing would knock back, and all of a sudden the art experience was not what the crate represented, it was their experience, intellectually, emotionally, everything, interacting with it, which was really them energizing it. So it was an interactive piece, but it was also non-representational. So that's that. In this particular case, the series of pieces, of which Mirror Mirror is one, that's where that came from. And that was a very pure piece because it had no sub-theme. Since then, I've done these pieces like Mirror Mirror that have the sub-theme, which is tied in with Snow White. So there's multiple things going on. And my other pieces, I have other pieces that have multiple themes too. So that's pretty much it.
Cool.